So that was essentially the debate.
Yes.
So would your recommendation at that stage have been that we should essentially aim to continue with containment rather than go down a regime change route?
Well, can I just say that the route that I recommended to the Prime Minister, which seemed to me to be a practical route, was not a route of regime change. The route that I recommended to the Prime Minister was that containment, I mean, as I say, of course I thought about this. I mean, in a sense, that's what I was paid for, and it would have been an extraordinary dereliction of duty if I had not thought about this, and I mean, I don't want to use the word agonising in the sense of, because if you take these jobs on, you've got to make decisions, but you have to think very hard about what you are doing. And of course there was a debate about whether we could just put up with containment. I mean, but the problem with just putting up with containment, notwithstanding 1409, was it wasn't going anywhere. And that was, there we were. And meanwhile, the perception of the risk had completely changed. And there was also, I mean...
The perception had changed. Had the risk changed?
Well, Sir Roderick, I actually don't know what the difference is between a perception of risk and risk, because risk is something that is perceived. I mean, I just, if I may give you this example. You know, I've spent 4 years as Home Secretary and now 2.5 as Justice Secretary. And one of the things you'll hear me going on about is what a great job we've done on crime and how crime's gone down. And all that's true. However, that is completely useless for somebody who is an old lady living in a street where there's been a burglary. And you can't go along to them and say, Madam, your risk of being burgled is less than it was. Because she will say to you, well, actually, my sense of risk is based on my perception. Thank you very much. And the house down the street's just been burgled. Now, if whatever the house down the street has been blown up, quite a number of people have been killed, her perception of risk would change. So that's why, as I say, there's no Richter scale, there's no objective. I mean, how do you have to measure risk by people's judgment, and so that was there. Could I just say that, I mean, alongside...
Just on that point,
yeah.
I mean, according to the Sunday Times the other day, which purported to be publishing something that you wrote on the 25th of March here, 25th of March 2002,
yeah.
And you just used the word objectively, your judgment at the time was that objectively the threat from Iraq has not worsened as a result of 11 September. You then go on to say that what had changed, as you've already said, was the tolerance of the international community. Okay. Objectively, the risk hadn't changed because containment had kept Saddam in his box.
Yes, well, okay, it's a nice point, and I just say, by the way, the version in the Sunday Times was taken straight off the website, and it was first, I think, published leaked in September 1974. The version I've got here was on...
Not 1974.
No, sorry, it's 2004.
Yes.
2004, apologies. And the version I've got here says, reading these American dates backwards, seems to be the 18th of July 2005. But anyway.
Is that quotation accurate?
Yes, it is. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, by the time you wrote that, and by the time, as you say, you gave the advice you gave to the Prime Minister, hadn't Number 10 already preempted you? Because from the time of just after the Axis of Evil Speech through to March, hadn't Number 10 been having private exchanges with the White House, including when Sir David Manning went to Washington in the middle of March, and Sir Christopher Mayer told us that he'd received change instructions, which he'd carried out, among others, with Paul Wolfowitz. And the line that Number 10 were taking, according to Sir Christopher Mayer and others at that time, was that they were indicating that if the Americans were going for regime change, but were prepared to build a coalition, they were indicating that the United Kingdom was prepared to be part of it. Now, conditions were then stated, which I want to come on to in a minute, but if that message was already going to the White House before March, was your advice being preempted?
I wouldn't use the word preempted. There was a debate going on, and my minute, I guess, reflected part of that debate. It was, may I also say, it was in part a debate about how you handled the Americans. And what has to be said from this is that the overall result of all the work that was done by the Prime Minister, by me, by many others, Jeremy Greenstock, Christopher Mayer, and many others, was that we converged on to achieve the policy objective that we wanted, which was the commitment by the United States to go down the UN route for the sole purpose, not of regime change, but of dealing with, quotes, the threat that Iraq posed to international peace and security. So, different of us have to handle our interlocutors in different ways. I felt that my job on this, as in I've done any other job in Cabinet, was to say what I thought, and not only to say what I thought, but to offer the Prime Minister a considered and worked through view about what I thought.
Now, you've said very strongly that our foreign policy objective was not regime change. You said it would have been improper, unlawful, wasn't a course that you could have recommended. Was that also the Prime Minister's view?
Well, none of us liked the Saddam Hussein regime, and if there could have been some way of ridding the world and the Iraqi people of that regime, that would have been great. And I think Jonathan Powell was making that point when he gave evidence the other day. So I don't want anything I say to be misunderstood, that somehow I was speaking up for the Iraqi regime.
I don't think there's any danger of that.
Okay. I mean, they were an odious group, and if we could have got rid of them, or helped opposition groups to say goodbye to them, if sanctions could have achieved that, that would have been great. But that was not on the menu. But say on the reason I'm being precise here is that what was being talked about, discussed, considered, was the question of military action by the United States, with at this stage only a possibility of military action involving the United Kingdom. And the Prime Minister was as well aware as I was that, as I say, military action for regime change could not be an objective of British foreign policy, and nor could it be disguised as an objective of British foreign policy.